6 on the harmonica. Now we already did a little bit of that, little foreshadowing in the previous lesson, but we need to study it a little bit more deeply now. When we're trying to copy the organist, and especially the horn section, we want to use octaves whenever possible, just because they present a bigger sound. Now bigger doesn't necessarily mean louder. Bigger means a larger texture, either playing like a 2-draw, 5-draw, which is a more dissonant, more aggressive texture. This is something that an organist or a horn section would play. That's 2-draw, 5-draw on my A harmonica. If I do the blow, you get the 2-blow, 5-blow, so that's an octave. E and E, again referencing a C harmonica for all our theory. So I get G and F on the draw, E and E on the blow. Those are big sounds. So it doesn't necessarily equate to volume, but it's a bigness of tone. Having that 5-blow supported by that octave below E, So let's take a look at example 1.2, or even if we go a little further back to 1.1, what I do is I just outline for each hole. A little review of our last lesson, right? So on hole number 4, we have the 4-draw, so assume 1-draw, 4-draw octave, D, which is the 5th of the 1 chord. Then we go to the 4 chord, that next column down, that's C, so 1-blow, 4-blow, C octave. This can give us the root note of the 4 chord. Then right below that we have the option of D or C, D being the root note of the 5 chord, D, F sharp, A, C, or C being the flat 7th. So in example 1.2, we have the D and a nice Charleston rhythm for our 1 chord. We have C for bar 5 on our 4 chord. There's our root note for the 4 chord. Bar 9, which is our last line of the progression, holding that note, and it's not a bad idea to change your rhythm up a little bit in bars 9 and 10, and then play some form of a turnaround lick in 11 and 12 if the turnaround exists. In this case, our jam track, Used to Be My Baby. Go ahead and download it if you haven't already done so. Doesn't use a turnaround, and it's actually not uncommon for a swing to not use a turnaround. It's actually more common for it not to use a turnaround than to use a turnaround. So we're holding that 4-draw octave for the 5 chord, 4-blow octave for the 4 chord. In this case, since there's no turnaround, I'm just back to my original idea, because that means the last 2 bars are just the 1 chord. Now, I did put a Roman numeral 5 there, just to indicate the fact that on those last 2 beats, if the band does go to a turnaround, we still know that 1-draw, 4-draw will still match, because that's the root note of the 5 chord. So if I put on Used to Be My Baby, this is the jam track without the vocals and the guitar, I'm just going to slow it down about 15%. Let's play this together. Okay, get ready. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, can change your rhythm up a little bit. Ga, 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 ga. Now, articulation-wise, for the draw, ga or ka, a little bit stronger with the k instead of the g. So g is a softer articulation, k is a little bit sharper. So for our inhale, ga, 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 ga is what I'm using right now. For our blows, we almost always, as post-war Chicago blues harmonica players, will use a cough. We try not to articulate on the blow because it gets a little bit mouthy on the blow notes. So using articulation from the throat is going to give us a bigger sound. You could use a k for the exhale as well, but it's more common to use the throat. So I can change my rhythm up a little bit if I want, and that's fine. Ba, ga, 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 ga. What if you went 4, 4, 3, 4? Feel free to elaborate, but remember that the key element of accompaniment is repetition. So if I go 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 4, I should also go 4, 4, a 4, 4, 3, 4. And not a bad idea to do a sequence for the 4 chord. I go to 4-blow, 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 4-draw, 4-blow, create a sequence on that 4 chord, right? So feel free to improvise with these octaves. Just keep in mind that you want to be using as many of the elements of sequencing as possible, because repetition, we know, is one of our governing laws of accompaniment playing. Volume and repetition are very important. So mimic the rhythm on the 4 chord and also mirror any movement. In this case, I went up and then back down on the 4 chord instead of going down and coming back up on the 1. So that's a form of a sequence. So let me go ahead and play just a little bit more improvised form of 1.2. it's getting closer to a solo, isn't it? Well, again, through the repetition, that is okay. And repetition is our key element. Now let's go to example 1.3. Now in 1.3, we have the more aggressive fifth hole. Now this is the 2-draw, 5-draw, root note on the bottom and flat 7th on the top. Now this jam track is not very aggressive. It's not very bluesy. But if you want to give it a bluesy element, especially later on in a song as the whole band's trying to drive, this can be a really great thing to play. I really like this 2-draw, 5-draw when it's a really bluesy blues. So our 1 chord is the 2-draw, 5-draw. And then for our 4 chord, it's 2-blow, 5-blow. Again, this correlates to our example 1.1 chart. Notice on the chart how the 5 chord, there's a missing note on the 5th hole. So without the use of overbends, we don't have a note available there. And even if we did overbend, we couldn't play octaves. So we'd commonly move down or move up on the harmonica. So it is left blank right now. Okay, let's go ahead and play example 1.3 together. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Five chord. Okay, now moving to the 6th hole. Looking at our example 1.1 again, we show that the G, 6th blow in this case, is our root note of the 1 chord. And then 6th blow G is our 5th of the 4 chord. And then the 6th draw A, that's a great note for the 5 chord. Now the problem is we look in example 1.4 is when that 5 chord comes, we no longer have an octave available to us. So if we play that octave embouchure, if our lips are over 4 holes, we get B on the bottom and A on the top. That's very dissonant. Well, the 2-draw, 5-draw was very dissonant. Yeah, but in this case, you're playing the 3rd, and, well, let's see, what would that be relative to the 5 chord? That'd be the 6th of the chord on the bottom and the 5th on the top. And it's pretty aggressive sounding. I've heard it every now and again in my life as someone studying the harmonica, but it's too aggressive in this case for the 5 chord. So harmonica players, even in their solos, will commonly switch to a 6th draw, finish their line, and go back into octaves. So in example 1.4, the 6th draw is just a single note. Here we go. Let's play 1.4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.